It's time to get sexy. So watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Welcome to Talk Heathen. Today is the 10th of April, or April 10th, as you Americans say, I think. My name is Katie Montgomerie. I am the host today, and today I'm joined by the lovely Genevieve. How are you?
I'm so great. How are you doing?
Yeah, as people might have noticed, my voice is a little bit scratchy. Hopefully, it won't get worse throughout the show. I've had a cold for like 9 days now.
Oh.
I've tested negative for COVID 5 times, so I don't think it's COVID. But it's this is like the best my voice has been in like 5 days, and it's been interesting times trying to talk to people at work.
Oh no. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's such a pain. I'm so sorry, but
that's okay. We'll get through it. Hopefully,
we'll get through it.
It won't be too irritating for everyone. But perhaps if any callers call in and ask things that Genevieve is a real specialist on, I won't have to talk anyway. So
yes.
But yeah, anyway, talking of which, Talk Heathen is a call-in show, and you can call in. The number is just below, just here. Please do call in, and we would like to hear about your beliefs, your religions. Maybe you can convert one or both of us to your religion live on the show. Maybe you could prove that we have a soul and then save it. That would be amazing.
That would be incredible.
Much better than you proving that there was a hell and then convincing us that's where we were going. But maybe, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Please do call in. We've got some space on the lines, but the lines may well fill up. So make sure you get your call in as soon as you possibly can. Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh dear. Oh gosh. Yeah. It's
not going to be too bad. It's not going to be so bad.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I do hope we get some callers, some apologists, because it sounds like we could give them some really good advice about what they could say and what they shouldn't say. And you're absolutely right that the hell approach doesn't really work for me. The whole sin thing, not really my cup of tea either. So I would love to give you some pointers on how to better attempt to convert people like Katie and myself.
Yeah, I mean, evidence is a good way to go, I think,
rather than
threats of eternal damnation. But
yeah, that part's pretty crucial. But if you have evidence, please absolutely call in. I consider myself an agnostic atheist, so there is always that wiggle room to be proven wrong. So please do.
Yeah, just not convinced yet. I'm not making a strong assertion, anyone.
Yeah.
But talking of not cup of tea, this is probably the most British anyone's ever going to see me. I don't like tea. I don't drink tea. The reason I'm drinking it is because of my voice. So enjoy the Britishness.
Yes. And I'm an American who loves tea, so I am right there with you.
Wicked. Well, so for anyone who doesn't know, Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, the ACA, and it is a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture, which is really important. Like, I was thinking, like, what is some like real atheist culture that like all atheists are into? It's not really a thing.
Yeah, that's hard, and that's a funny thing too. Speaking of giving advice to apologists, is that they love to make these assertions about you atheists believe X, Y, and Z, and really the one thing that unites us mostly is that we just don't believe in a God. There are atheists who believe in a young Earth and a flat Earth, and I don't know why, but it's true. I've met them. Yeah, but it is nice that we have an organization that can promote positive atheist culture, because especially if you're here in the United States, then there's a lot that we share culturally across the board, just dealing with how American evangelical Christianity has influenced us and the rest of the world.
Yeah, in a
So,
way, like dealing with uh religious like evangelical stuff is probably like the most American atheist culture that there is.
yeah.
Which is also brings me on to the other like main thing that Talk Heathen is about and the ACA is about, which is promoting the separation of religion and government, which I think is a very important like cause, especially as like we're talking about some of the things going on in Texas recently, just before the show, about abortions and LGBT rights. And now lots of this stuff is because people are trying to use their religions to control other people using the government. And so, yeah, separating those two things is very important because no one should be able to control other people who don't believe in their religion, or they shouldn't really be able to control anyone. But with using their religions and using politics, so it's a good thing for that's why the ACA exists, and that is why it would be great if you could support the ACA. And there are lots of different ways that you can support the ACA, and one of those ways, of course, is the ACA has a Patreon, and you can go to tiny.cc/Patreon if you would like to donate there. And there's loads of special stuff and posts and all this kind of stuff. Everyone knows what Patreon is now. It's pretty cool. So yeah, get involved in that. And obviously, classic YouTube stuff. Please like and subscribe, and you can enable the notifications and write your comment and write how I'm definitely the best host and Genevieve is definitely the best co-host that's ever been on this show, and just like say why everyone else is really bad. maybe don't do that. And also, you can become a channel member now. So I guess members is kind of a new YouTube thing. Maybe everyone knows what that is now as well. But you can click the join button, which is just below the video. And that gives you custom chat emotes and all this kind of stuff. And you help out the ACA and this quest to separate religion and state, which is quite important. But we actually have some callers on the line already. If you're ready to jump straight into some calls.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, wicked. So the first person we're going to talk to today is Ruth from California. And you would like to talk about religious quantum theory and science? What's that about?
Well, yeah, I'm like Genevieve. I have never had a religious bone in my body, ever. I as a young child, well, I did get kicked out of church. I told Kenneth this, and he laughed because I was questioning Adam and Eve and incest, so I got kicked out. But
that's a good thing to be kicked out of, for even kicked out for incest related reasons. But then you have to quickly clarify that you were questioning the incest, right? Sorry. Anyway,
I was because it happens so often in the Bible. Noah and his wife, they destroyed planet with rain and then repopulated the earth with just the two of them and some friends. I considered that an orgy on the ark. And
I mean, it was like orgy by design. Like it's all incest, all the animals, not just humans. It's like
all of it,
the most incest orgy thing possible, really. Anyway, quantum theory and science.
Okay. So yeah, I study science. I'm really into quantum physics and astrophysics, and then I know that sometimes on one of your couple of shows that I run into, I didn't know the atheists needed a show. I like Genevieve. Who knew? No one's ever bothered me about it. But the fact that I study science and the thing that I always ask religious people when they say God created the universe, well, wait a second. Well, the universe is the most dangerous place. It would eat us the minute we got out of the atmosphere. There's black holes there's quantum particles that create wave function and particle function, and black holes. Black holes are amazing. But did God create black holes? Did he really create a huge area that we can't even explore because he made us?
Well, yeah,
so
like
insignificant?
99.999% of the universe, basically, we can't explore or interact with in any way. And like they're claiming that God made the
No.
universe for us. It's like, what's going on here?
Well,
Yeah, totally agree.
it just doesn't agree. And when I bring that up to, say, a religious person, they just stare at me like I slap their brain with knowledge, and they just don't know how to react to it. And so, if you go on YouTube, which is where I found you, young ladies, and all your wonderful people, and go to World Science Festival, and you'll learn God did not create a happy universe. So I don't understand what all these Christians are getting all worked up about. It's just not a fact.
I think as well as not creating a like hospitable universe for humans, because I mean that's obviously true. I mean most of our solar system isn't hospitable for humans. Like most of the planet isn't hospitable for humans. Like we can't go under the sea, we can't go high into the clouds, we can't go in the lava. Like it's way worse than in Minecraft. But like as well as all of that, also it's just so pointlessly complicated. Like because you mentioned black holes, which are like unimaginable how big they are, and like for some reason like God was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make gravity work in a way that sometimes so much matter clumps together and then bends light and like changes time like why, for what reason? And he didn't mention that in the Bible, so obviously like he wanted us to discover it, but for what reason? And then also you were talking about like wave functions and particle physics, and particularly like quantum, like you mentioned earlier. It's just so ridiculously nonsense and complicated. You would think that a perfect God would be able to make something a bit more make more sense. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just because God works in mysterious ways and my pathetic human brain can't possibly understand. But like, there's got to be a reason for it, right? If it's the perfect being, then he didn't just do arbitrary nonsense. It's all got a reason, but it just doesn't. It doesn't appear like that to me.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know what you think,
up.
Genevieve.
And what? Yeah, Genevieve, what's up?
Hi. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because you're absolutely right that most of our planet is not hospitable to human life, let alone the universe itself. But not just that. The universe is expanding at a rate where no matter what technology we develop, no matter how fantastic we get at space exploration, we physically will never be able to go to like over 90% of the universe. I want to say it's like 98% of the universe is completely without out of reach of any of us, and that alone is pretty telling when it comes down to this whole idea that the Bible says that we are made in God's image, and it seems like this whole religion is based on the fact that he cares so much about us that he will damn you for touching your own genitals. It seems so crazy that in a universe so vast that people would think that we are the center of its creator's attention. And I think that might be why you're getting this pushback too. It's not because of the facts. I mean, a lot of it is because of ignorance, because there's a lot that you just don't know about the universe unless you're really into studying science. But it's an emotional response. They will look at you blankly and stare at you because you're not just questioning whether God exists. You're questioning their importance in a sense, and their sort of sense of life and their place in the universe. And that's scary. That's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I feel like this idea that that God created the whole universe just for humans just feels a bit like if I was to be like, oh, I've made you this mansion. It's got like 500 bedrooms. It's like the biggest, grandest house on the whole earth. But you're only allowed under the stairs in the cupboard. And if you go outside, I'll kill you. It's like, well, did you
Yeah,
really build
that's
this
it.
mansion for me then? Because it feels like you built this mansion
Yes.
not for me. It feels like you made the cupboard under
Oh,
the
yeah, I'm
stairs
sure
for me.
God created radiation and sun flares that could wipe us out. Just everything, disease. We're not a perfect body. Christ, there's
Speak for
animals
yourself.
that do more than we do. It's animals that can live underwater and out of water. And what can we do? Live out of water only. So, yeah, we're not a perfect species at all.
I was also talking to Genevieve about this before the show about how, you know, if God's meant to have created animals and humans and stuff as they are, or even created something and then directed evolution or whatever the sort of next level apologist like excuse for evolution existing is, it's made some really weird decisions, because there are some animals that can survive going to space and leaving the atmosphere and coming back, called tardigrades.
Yeah, tardigrades.
And there are, like you
Yeah.
say, yeah.
Love those little
And there
guys.
are some animals that can live in geothermal vents under the sea where there's no sunlight and all this kind of stuff. So when we look at humans, it's not that God was like, I don't want animals here. He was like, I don't want humans here. Specifically made the decision that if I fall like 10 meters, I will die. Like, you know, straight down, but loads of beetles don't. Like, he's made, you got to, it's interesting to think about every single aspect of humans that isn't shared by all animals. And the claim here is that God has made that a specific decision for us. And some of those implications
That
are really
we would
bleak.
be superior. Yeah. My
Yeah,
friend,
yeah.
well, I don't talk to her anymore. She's born again Christian. She says that God made us superior to animals, and that's why we build buildings. And it's like bullshit. I'm sorry.
I can't even
I
fly,
get really
mate.
passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't fly. I don't have gills. I can't like
Yeah.
catch things in the air like super. I can't even throw. Like, I'm not even a very good human. So
I
Yeah.
can't see at night. I have no night vision, but my cat can see me perfect in the dark. And
yeah.
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
the idea of these theists, I'd like to have someone, a religious person, come on and debate me, and I would stun them.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that all does go back to that flaw in their understanding of evolution and why they struggle with you bringing up facts about the state of the universe and why it's not made for us, is that they have a lot of people who I've met who struggle with understanding evolution seem to think that human beings are the be all end all. Like, how could you explain this? We are the best. We are the height of evolution. Like, why isn't everything else as smart as we are? If we came from monkeys, why are there monkeys and why aren't they building buildings?
I hate
It's all
that.
this argument.
I hate that.
Oh yeah, it is frustrating. It's so frustrating, but you do have to understand, like, we are not the be all end all of evolution, nor are we finished evolving. It all comes down to who is, better suited for their particular niche. And if you want to bring up the complexity of the eye to prove the existence of God, it's like, well, hawks have much better eyes than I do. Like, I don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
The eye is like the
Yeah.
absolute single worst cell phone example for like evolution not being real, because we today in just the animal kingdom have an example of eyes at every single stage of the
Mhm.
evolutionary process, from just like single light detecting cells with no directional ability to like clusters of cells which can tell the direction of light but can't do anything else, to like basic non-lensed eyes, big clusters of cells, and then basic lenses, and then like focusable lenses, and then all the way up, like Genevieve says, way beyond the function of our eyes. Like hawk's always the example, but I would also like to forward the mantis shrimp, which can see polarized light and can see like a massive range of the electromagnetic spectrum, which we can't see, seemingly for no reason,
We
because it
can
doesn't
see
seem to
it,
give it any
yeah.
benefit. So we've got this incredible live documentation of every stage of the eye throughout like history. So whenever someone brings up the eye, I'm like, mate, you should like, this is a big cell phone.
Yeah, I've heard them say that to Matt Dillon-Honey. I've heard him say it to Seth Andrews. I've only realized that atheists need a talk show about, I don't know, 6 months ago, when I was wandering through YouTube and thought, holy shit, I've been anti-religion my whole life. Didn't know there was a talk show. So I'm taking advantage of it and trying to educate the masses. And our eyes can't see diddly compared to a bee, to the shrimp. That just threw me off, because I've never had a religious person talk about the eyeballs, although I will.
It's the thing. It's the thing they
about,
say. Like when you were
there's,
talking. Sorry to cut you off, Ruth. I was just saying, like, you were. I was just thinking. Earlier, you said you would love to debate with some religious people, and it sounds like you're quite enjoying this kind of like talk show format and the call-in show thing. And you also said, "I'd love to have an argument with these people because I'll just like blow their minds or whatever." And I think,
I would
firstly,
love to come on your show.
yeah.
But I'm in
Well, I
California.
would encourage
You guys
it.
don't have an atheist group, huh?
I would encourage you to if you enjoy this kind of thing, do it, because it is just genuinely fun. I like arguing. I'm actually addicted to arguing. If you see my Twitter, you'll see I have a serious problem. But also like it's important activism in my estimation. Like we're saying, campaigning against the church trying to meddle around in politics and all this kind of stuff. But also I think it's quite eye-opening, because often in your mind, when you haven't argued with lots of these people before, you're like, well, this is a slam dunk fact. Like, there's just no way out of this for them. And you tell it to them, and somehow it just doesn't work. And they will just change the subject, or they will have a little sort of magic trick in their mind that they can say. It's like a little one-liner that just convinces them to stop thinking. And it kind of reveals, like Genevieve was saying earlier, about how this is emotionally attached to people. Generally, all humans, and this is true of me to some extent as well, build up their worldviews not just based on logic and facts. There's so much of it which is just misinformation we learn, but also much of it is emotion. And people really, really cling to their worldviews. Sometimes when it's a small change, like, oh, I used to think, that this football team was blue kit or something, and now I found out it's red. Like, that's just a small change. It's not really a worldview change. But like, sometimes when it's something like, oh, well, actually evolution is real, like that's a big deal, because it undermines so much of what you've invested in emotionally. So a lot of the time, that just means it just can't be true. Like, I encounter people like this all the time. They make this claim because it's part of their big worldview. And you're like, okay, let's just focus in on this one claim you've made. It is demonstrably false. Like, here is the evidence. Your claim is a logical contradiction. There's just literally no way out of this. And they'll just be like, no. Because if I'm right and they're wrong, then the whole worldview is wrong. But their whole worldview can't be wrong because they're so emotionally invested in it. So that means, no, that's it. It's the end. Like, I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to get aggressive. I'm going to start calling you names, all this kind of stuff. And it is interesting. So I don't know. As someone who is addicted to arguing, I encourage you to have a go and work up to these shows. I mean, the whole reason that me and Genevieve do this is just because, I mean, I'm only speaking on behalf of myself here, but I'm an argumentative dickhead who just kept going, and now I'm on this show. And maybe that's true of Genevieve too. Who knows?
Yeah. See, that if you had some people in Northern California, man, I'd be there every day. I used to work at a suicide hotline. I love being on the phones, and I found that most people that were brought into religion as a young child, and they're brought up like, say, some of your other people in your organization that were devout Christian, it seems like they got their little brains invested at a very young age, where Genevieve and I, we weren't. And so we have a different perspective of that. We can argue on never been religious people that still are, or, sit side by side with someone who was invested and walked away. And I find that people that were early Christians, or their parents shoved it down their throats, and that's what they did. I consider it child abuse, because they never had them parents never let their kids decide what they wanted. That was drilled into them.
Yeah, I
before they
think
had a
that's
choice.
interesting. It's an interesting point. I think, and it's quite relevant at the moment, especially with the politics going on in America. And I know, like in Florida, you've got this like "Don't Say the Gay" bill, and there's a very kind of move where Republicans, perhaps, or not, maybe it's best not to say. There's lots of people, and they're often of certain political leanings sometimes, but also religious ones and stuff, who are calling everyone they don't like a groomer. And kind of implying child abuse, and often kind of implying like sexual grooming and this kind of stuff. And so when I now see this, I mean, they said it to me on Twitter like once every 3 minutes, and I'm so used to that being used, weaponized, and obviously being complete garbage, that when I hear it like the other way around, where something I agree with, I'm like, oh, is this actually right, or is this jumping to conclusions? And I think that sometimes it can be grooming. I think when an example of it, in fact, is if you, homeschool your kids because you don't want them learning about evolution and all this kind of stuff, and particularly if you're like, I don't want them learning about LGBT issues because what if they turn out gay? What if they turn out trans or whatever? And then maybe the kid is LGBT, and then you start putting them from conversion therapy, or like teaching them they're wrong, all this kind of stuff. That is a child abuse.
Yeah,
and it can
child
be the
abuse.
case. Yeah, and it can be the case with things like LGBT people, which I'm quite passionate about. But it can be the case with other things. I feel like if you're teaching your kids to be abusive to people of other religions or other races, or sexualities, or teaching women that they're inferior, this kind of stuff is a form of abuse too, and it can have long-lasting effects on people's well-being and well-being of others around them if they really take it on board.
Well,
But I do think
it's
that not all,
generational.
yeah, but I do think that not all teaching people, like bringing up kids religious, isn't inherently child abuse. I get the like feeling to want to say that, because it's like you're teaching them a lie, but I mean, people bring people up in cultures and religions all the time. It's pretty standard for humans, and lots of people grow up fine and they don't have
But they
long-lasting
teach them to
harm
hate.
for it. Sometimes, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's when it can become abuse. And I think there is a point where it definitely is abuse, and I think there's a point where calling it abuse is kind of unreasonable, and there's a gray area in between for sure. And maybe when you're teaching people to hate, or you're teaching people there's some kind of inherent hierarchy or something that needs to be enforced on people, or this kind of stuff, then it can, it's gray area whether it's abusive then. But I don't want to say, oh, if you're someone who like doesn't really go to church, but you kind of like Easter and you kind of like Christmas and all this kind of stuff, and you teach your kids that
I'm
God's
not
real, that I
talking about
don't
that.
think
I'm
that's
talking
child
about,
abuse. Yeah.
sending your kids to Jesus camp and gay therapy, and because there's Christians that are still sending their children to, make them feel like they're not gay, or if they are, they're hated, or God don't love them. I'm talking about that kind of abuse. If you go to your Presbyterian church once a month, or twice a year, that's not. But when you're starting to teach them hate or conversion therapy, which I think they outlawed conversion therapy in Britain, but not transgender.
Yeah, that's the
Which I
thing
don't
going on at the
understand.
moment. They haven't So this is dangerously close to my specialist issue. I will not rant. But basically the government has decided that they haven't banned anything yet, but they've decided they're going to just ban conversion therapy for gay people, despite their own study saying trans people are twice as likely to suffer from it. It's all it's one of these things where the government is being absolutely terrible. I think I can slander the British government on this show as much as I want. The government is a fucking disaster,
Yeah, you
and
can.
they're trying to
I
distract.
can't.
But yeah, so that's basically the long and the short of that. But
It just sounds
yeah,
like you guys are getting a Republican Party, like, Trump groomed Boris Johnson, Bojo, and you guys are kind of stuck.
it's bad times. I'm having a bad time. Get me out of this hellhole.
I know. I can send you hugs and love
Thank you.
from the other side of the pond. But I
You
watch
can send love rings at the end of the show.
time. Oh, if we could hug the government out of your country, we would. But I don't think they're going to hug anytime soon.
No.
No, probably not.
No.
But yeah, I think just kind of going back to the original topic before we just wander off into the realm of politics and
I
LGBT
know.
rights.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's good to all this stuff does kind of link together, not in like a conspiracy theory way where it's like, oh, it's all linked together, but just like
no.
politics informs religion and religion informs politics, and that's the reason why the ACA exists, to try and break that separation.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why the
Well,
show is here. But like you say, it ends up coming up against science as well. And there's one
does.
thing when it's like opinions on the ways to society to run. Like I can, vehemently disagree with people who think, that gay people shouldn't be taught about at schools or something because it's disgusting. But when people start saying gay people factually don't exist, or even the earth is 4,000 years old, or whatever the claim is, suddenly they're just having to deny. And when you're having to deny those facts, I mean, we found out those facts through investigation and through science, and then you're having to say, well, maybe that means the whole process of science is wrong, and then they end up at war with science, and you end up with all these people who are opposed to all kinds of things like vaccines and healthcare for trans people, and like a mad amount of things. Then they start buying Herbalife or whatever it's called.
Yeah. There's definitely a slippery slope there when it comes to pyramid schemes and religious beliefs, in my experience. But that we were talking a little bit before the show, and that was also something that really was a huge catalyst for me getting much more involved and getting into secular activism. Was that it can be funny if you have a friend who says something silly like, oh, if we came from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? But it was really that, okay, so you don't believe that. Why would you believe scientists about anything else? If you believe Jesus is coming in the next 50 years, why would you care about climate change? And a month after that conversation, there was this thing called COVID. I don't know if you guys were here for that, but it was a thing, and it's still a thing. And I had friends and family members in their 70s saying that they don't need to wear a mask because Jesus will protect them. And that's just demonstrably false and dangerous. So it's much greater than, our beliefs don't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
ask for a religious person why God created COVID. Hey,
Well,
people
everything.
are
It's always a
dying right
test
and
of the faithful. It's a test of the faithful.
left. Oh, yeah.
It's always our fault in some
That's
way.
what-
Yeah.
That's why scientists, they asked, I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Greene. He's an astrophysics professor in New York at Cornell. He won't even debate a religious person because, as a lot of the university professors say, it's a non-debate. It's just a non-debate. Fact.
I know that. I mean,
fiction.
The magic of like demanding to debate everything is you can bring everything back to your ridiculous view. You're posing these two concepts. It's like, well, why don't we debate whether like the moon exists? No one will debate me. No one. It's because they're scared. It's because NASA can't defend their own like point of like. No, it's because it's such a fucking ridiculous discussion. That it's a waste
It
of.
is.
Firstly, it's a waste of time. But secondly, now we're having to like your view is being presented as some kind of discussion point, and then if it becomes in the news, then suddenly the amount of people who believe in it, and it drags us backwards. And there are so I'm not saying we can't talk about whether the moon might be fake. What I'm saying is we're not going to have fucking physics lecturers at top universities having to devote their time to it, not because they can't, but because it's a joke. Anyway,
It is.
ranting
That's
off
why they
again.
won't do it.
I think we're gonna have to move on, Ruth. But this has been a good call. We've had a good
That's fine.
three-way atheist rant.
Yes.
I know.
Thank you
I
very
loved
much.
it. And, I'll call back in on a weekend. I
Please
just
do.
really like to. First, I thought these shows were a joke, and people would call in and make fun of religious people. Then I started listening. No, they're fucking serious, and it's not something to laugh at.
Absolutely.
People commit suicide over it. So, yeah, it's not a joke.
Nope.
You girls,
Yeah,
you're
anyway,
wonderful. And
thanks a lot, Ruth.
And Genevieve.
We'll talk another time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, we've got some more callers now to move on to. So next we're going to talk to Forrest in Massachusetts, who wants to talk about a persuasive argument with evangelical Christians. So is this you being persuaded or you persuading someone else?
I think that yourselves as hosts and myself who try to break through this wall of communication, that these tools are pretty incredible. And one of them was brought to my attention from the late Christopher Hitchens, who made it be known about the verse Philippians 4:8, which I think should be in a memorized, maybe you already have this as part of your weaponry, but to communicate to someone, you have to first bring down a wall. And when you're raised a fundamentalist Christian, you are innocent as a child, and you really want to follow what is true, what is good, the light, Jesus, and you're brought to indoctrination camps and things of this nature, and you start out really wanting to please what you believe represents all truth and all goodness. And so you have a really good heart. And then, so when Philippians 4:8 talks about, now you're talking to older Christians who have been indoctrinated. So you bring up the fact that whatsoever be true, whatsoever be lovely, whatsoever be pure of heart, whatsoever be of good report, if there be any virtue, think on these things. And I wear down that wall by presenting them with this, which is why they became a Christian in the first place. They didn't do it. Most people who were raised fundamentalist, I'm talking about. And so when you, or those people that have, a lot of empathy and want to be good. And so then I explained to them that during our Christian upbringing, we are actually taught to be dishonest. We are taught to be dishonest by making claims as fact when we don't know them as fact, when we just believe them, such as personal testimonies. When you go up in front of a church and you tell why God changed your life. These are training sessions on how to make your mind accept making claims as though they're fact. And so when Christopher Hitchens pointed this verse out, it really reaches to those people. And you say, I feel that a true Christian heart, or one that really wanted to follow what was true, would also really seek to find out what is actually true. And if they don't, then they're not really a Christian, not according to the way they started, wanting to find out what was true, wanting to find out what was good. And I want to thank you both for doing this show because it's very important. It's important. It's like a race against time. Can we reach those people that have that wall? It's like those who watch Fox and they watch nothing else but Fox. How do you get them to understand what is actually true? And when you mention the moon, that's another example that I use, is truth is. And what people are doing today is they are dividing the people by saying both sides. This is a common cliche, which should be stopped. We shouldn't say that. There's many sides. And if you talk about the moon and you say the moon is made of green cheese, that's not really a logical side at all. Truth is what we should be looking for when reporting news, and truth is what we should be looking for when trying to reach people that are deeply indoctrinated into Christianity. And for myself, there was a time. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. It's just I noticed you were moving on, like, kind of to a second point, and I just kind of wanted to go on to your original, like, comment about this Bible verse, Philippians 4:8. I think sometimes it does depend on who you're talking to. Sometimes you can use the Bible against Christians and say, "Oh, but the Bible says this." You know, like a classic example of it is when they'll start being horrible to people who aren't religious or to LGBT people and all this kind of stuff. And you say, well, you know, Jesus says to love. It's in the Bible. It's what you're meant to do. You're meant to turn the other cheek and forgive people, all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And in that way, this verse is kind of like that, because it's saying, well, you know, you should try and work out what's true. That's like part of being a Christian. But at the same time, I find that using the Bible on Christians doesn't work often, in my personal experience, because for two reasons. One is all of these verses are just open to interpretation, and they'll just choose to interpret it a different way. Like, it's very easy to just change the interpretation or whatever. And secondly, there are so many different things in there. They can kind of just pick and choose and build their own worldview. And they might acknowledge that it says, oh yeah, you should try and work out what's true. But they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I'll do that. Like, anyway, that's not what's important. What's important is the Bible also says that, like, Jesus was definitely the Son of God. So that's my main focus, and that's the most important thing to me. And I care about that because it is true. And that's what the Bible says. And it's kind of like, again, trying to get them to change their worldview rationally by saying, oh, well, you accept all the claims in the Bible, right? Well, this claim in the Bible says you've got to investigate all the claims in the Bible. So let's start with this one and now move outwards. And there are people who kind of work like that, and their brains work like that, and they often end up being not Christian anymore. But I think for a lot of people, that won't necessarily work. And I'm not trying to tell you or Christopher Hitchens that I'm more adept at, like, deconverting people or anything, or that either of you are wrong, because that's not true. You know, Christopher Hitchens is a bit of a legend for it, but it's something that I don't do personally. I don't often
Were you
use.
raised fundamentalist?
Sorry?
Were you raised in an evangelical fundamentalist home?
No, I wasn't. I was quite like a mild version of Church of England.
And I find that those who are raised, not everyone, but I find that many, it's very common when I speak to other people, that those who are not raised with the indoctrination that is severe don't really believe, perhaps, or don't really understand the full depth of the brainwashing. And it is severe. And I didn't realize that I had been brainwashed until I was about 30. And I had to ask myself, one of the most profound questions of all is, I knew that all the other religions are wrong, which is what you bring up to people all the time. But I couldn't see that my own was. And so one of the first realizations was I had to say, what if mine is wrong? And it was a shocking revelation. But when you are brought up, you start out as an infant. There's a wonderful verse which was written by I believe it was a rabbi, who said, so we were taught, so we believed. The priest continues what the nurse began, hence the child imposes upon the man. And as children, we don't have fully developed minds. I was taught at age 7 to go out and preach to my friends and tell them the goodness of Jesus and how, you will save. And what do I know at age 7? But what I did know at age 7 and age 10 and age 15 was that I wanted to follow what was true. And that meant more to me than gaining the gates of heaven or suffering the fate of hell. Because in my mind, Jesus stood for everything that was true, everything that was good. So you can't really discount that one verse, which I think it's fabulous. I think Christopher Hitchens said he used it at his own father's funeral or something. But it really struck me because that's what got me in the first place, was to follow what was true, because you follow the way, the truth, and the light. And I really saw Jesus as the epitome of everything that was true and everything that was good. So if I'm not following or looking for that, then I'm not following that original claim for why I became a Christian in the first place.
Yeah, I know
What
that.
do you have? Oh, sorry, I was just going to say,
Oh,
what do you have a take on this, Genevieve?
oh yeah. So, when I, not to argue with you or the late great Hitchens, I don't know if I would necessarily use this verse to talk to my Christian friends, because I know that from their perspective, they see the Bible as, the word of God, and they see it as a living book because, every day that they read it, they might flip it open to a random page and start reading it, and they are going to use the context in their own lives to read whatever verse in a very different way, and that's sort of how they feel that their Bible study serves them, and that's how God speaks to them. And so if I am putting on my evangelical Christian hat and I read Philippians 4:8, where it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, what is right, what is pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And just like you said, for Christians, that is the Bible, that is Jesus. And so for them, they would read this and they would say, oh, you're right. I need to focus all of my energy on what is good and pure, and that's Jesus Christ, and not whatever it is that you're saying, because I know this is true because the Bible says so. And you get into that circular argument. Um, the approach that I have taken before when talking to friends about their religious beliefs, in a non-confrontational way, I will just sort of ask them, like, look, you are devoting your entire life to this. This is sort of your be all end all, and in your situation, in your belief, like this is life or death. This is eternity of love and light or damnation. Don't you want to make sure that what you're believing is really, really, really true before you commit to something with such high stakes? Um, and that has served me well. I know that argument has been really helpful because that's something that they can definitely understand. Or I could say to them, look, this is of such importance. Don't you want to read and understand the arguments against it so that you could better fight people like myself? And maybe that's a disingenuous thing to
That's
say.
proper sneaky, that is. Like,
Yeah,
don't you want
yeah.
to prove me wrong? Why don't you learn all of the counter arguments and
Yes,
see how good they are?
yeah, and my end goal, it's kind of like we were discussing before, Katie, is that I don't know if I necessarily want to deconvert people. Wherever you land on the spectrum of belief or non-belief, I just want people to be open to thinking about things more deeply and to questioning their preconceived notions about anything. It's an inquisitive mind that I would like to see, not one that just believes exactly what I believe.
Yeah. Though I will say,
that brings up
Forrest. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I will say that, like, me and Genevieve have kind of said, oh, well, I wouldn't use this verse, and you're saying I would use this verse, and I think that's why it's important to hear from loads of different atheists, ex-religious people, about what managed to change their mind, because maybe when I believed in God, and maybe if Genevieve ever had, this wouldn't have worked on us. Maybe it's not going to work on her friends, but it worked on you, and it probably would work on loads of other people, and they've heard all of the nonsense that I say and all of the great arguments Genevieve says, and then maybe they've not, and we don't use this one, and then maybe they hear from you, and it is the one that like makes them feel like, oh crap, maybe I do need to do some understanding. And that's why it is good to hear all of these different angles. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm
Yeah.
saying in general, I wouldn't use this argument, but it's clearly made a difference to your life, like quite a profound one. So it is important. But anyway, sorry, Forrest, I think you were going to go on and add another point.
Well, I was going to touch bases on that and say your friend had said something which really disturbs me, because understanding how this happens in the first place is understanding that it's not a choice. We're not the fundamentalist Christian children, which go to all these mega churches events where they're screaming in the audience with euphoric delight, is giving them some kind of a rush like a drug. But they're not choosing as infants or as toddlers when they ask their parents, who am I praying to? And the parents have to lie. And the parents have to say, well, you're praying to God. Well, who is God? Well, God made you. God loves you. You know, these are things which are not true, which the parents are forced to follow in their church because they tithe, because they give their personal testimonies, because they've told their friends now they have to save their face. So what are they going to do? Tell their child, well, I don't really know. But what most parents of evangelical children do is they tell their children as fact that God created them and God made them. And I did not choose to believe this way. It was an indoctrination method, which is it's been used for thousands of years, and it's extremely effective on our brains. So when I finally, that light bulb went off in my head, and I said, you know, maybe my religion is wrong too. It was a shocking thought for me to think that my religion could be wrong too. I realized at that point that I would never have chosen to believe in myth as fact. As a matter of fact, when I was in school, I well remember, you know, in the fourth grade, wanting to know why water goes up into the roots of trees and forms leaves. I wanted to know what was actually true. And I actually became angry at those people who were the clergy in the church who took it upon themselves to mess with my mind. And I called the former church that I went to, and I asked them to take out that baptism book and look at my record of when I was baptized. And evangelical Christians typically get baptized in their teenage years or more. But I then had him copy it. Then I had him black out my name in the marker, and I told him how I felt about how he could possibly think that it was okay to teach me as fact things that he did not know as fact, and how it really curtailed my growing up as an adult. It really hurt my ability to, in a social means outside of my world of Christianity, because people would shut down. They just don't even talk to you about stuff after a while, or they don't want to disturb you because you have that right to believe the way that you want to. So I'm glad I called, because I want to put in that point. I did not choose to believe this way. This was how I was indoctrinated to believe, and it ruined a part of my life which could have been more about wonder, more about understanding, more about voting correctly in the voting booths versus voting against LGBT or whatever my minister. My minister told us that Henry Kissinger, he felt was the Antichrist. And I believed it completely because my mind was conditioned to just accept what the preacher said.
that is a good point. I do think that you know, that lots of these decisions aren't free choices. And we can have an argument about what free will is and whether anyone can make a real, but the important point that I want to get across here is, like, totally to agree with you that if you're indoctrinated into something, even if you're the brightest, most super curious person in the world, you've been indoctrinated. I mean, indoctrination works. We can just see that it works. And these people don't have the same choice as someone who is taught about all different religions at school and grows up with like kind of secular parents. Like, it's just different. And so I do totally agree with you. unfortunately, I think we're
And,
going to have to move on to
can I
some
tell
other
you one funny
callers.
thing?
But yeah, get your funny thing, and then we're going to have to move on.
Right. What's stronger than belief is natural impulse. So if people believe that God is all watching and all seeing all the time, what happens in the Christian mind, because our natural drives are stronger than belief, is we turn off the vision of God and the belief of God when we're in the bedroom. And we do all
Yeah.
kinds of fun and nasty things. Then afterwards, we just put our clothes back on and go back into the delusion.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And that does cause
thank
some
you for
people
taking
some
that.
guilt, but that's all right. Thank you very much for calling
Yeah,
in. It was
thank
an
you.
interesting topic. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear from all different people who have like got out of their religion through different ways and all this different kind of things, and hearing them, talk. People calling back their old pastors up and being like, "What the fuck, mate? You told me all this like garbage views," and yeah, and so I do agree that it's like important to hear from all these different atheists, which is what you can do on this show and on this all the ACA shows, in fact. And so that's why supporting the ACA is really important. So you may have noticed that below we have a fundraiser, and 100% of the profits from that go directly to the ACA. YouTube doesn't get to take a sneaky little cut. Google loves taking a cut of absolutely everything you do. So if you would like to donate to that, that would be amazing, because the ACA does great work in Austin and the wider community, creating a place for atheists to hang out. But probably the most important announcement of this year is, maybe beyond, the most important announcement post Jesus is that the Talk Heathen merch store is back. Amazing. That means you can all buy some of this wicked Talk Heathen merch. There's loads of stuff here. There's like hoodies and t-shirts and hats and face masks and phone covers and like a mug. I mean, maybe not quite as cool as my crab mug. No, it's cooler than my crab mug. It's a pretty cool mug that says Talk Heathen on it, and you can have it at work and intimidate some of your co-workers. Maybe don't do that. But one thing you will notice in the middle, we have a t-shirt there that says, "We don't hate, we're just not convinced." And that t-shirt is actually limited edition. It's just around for, I think, this month. And the Talk Heathen merch store is actually going to rotate in and out different limited edition merch that will only be around for maybe a month or a short amount of time. So if you're worried about missing out on that, you only have 1 month to act. So, it's a cool t-shirt. It's a cool slogan. It's like the Talk Heathen thing. So you've probably heard if you've seen this show before, and you will probably hear if you stick around to the end of the show. But yeah, definitely, like there's not been a Talk Heathen merch store for a long time, and now it is here, which is yay.
Yay.
So you can go there by going to tiny.cc/merch ACA. And yeah, there's loads of cool stuff there. Definitely check it out. But there's loads of other ACA stuff going on as well. There's not just merch. I mean, that's all we really need. But there is actually more. There's actually yeah, I mean, you can always come to our YouTube, but if you like listening to stuff in podcast format, there's actually a channel that has all the ACA shows in podcast form. So you can hear my lovely crackly voice without seeing my beautiful face. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you definitely can do. And to go there, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And talking of the community, if you would like to, become part of the community and get involved, you can, of course, be in the YouTube chat, right? And Katie is really cool all the time. But you could also go to the Talk Heathen community run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG, which is a cool place to go if you like Facebook, which I personally do not like Facebook. But this would be a good place to go if you like Facebook. But yeah, talking of other ACA shows, this isn't the only ACA show. There are loads of different ones. There's obviously this, which is obviously the best one, but there's also non-profits, secular sexuality, truth wanted, atheist experience, like loads of cool stuff, which you can all see on the podcast, listen in the podcast. You can't see podcasts. But if you want to see what you've missed out on this week, then perhaps check out this promotional video.
Good government and good legislation for y'all.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, and then this sex show can get back to hopping on the good foot and doing the bad thing. Like, we would like to not be talking about politics on, it's really getting in the way of our conversation.
You know, we're just a fact of the universe, and some people that makes them uncomfortable. For the rest of us, we've learned to live with it and figure out what to do next. And sometimes that includes going on call-in shows. But other times it means loving your family and doing things that make you happy and just being a human.
They need to appeal to people in these toxic churches and bring them in and show them that there's a kinder, gentler way to be a Christian.
I gotta say, Kelly, I might go back to church if there were pool tables or air hockey, but
if we're just going to use a methodology of common sense and not give a shit about what we believe in the world, then my common sense is just better than yours. Why? Because it's common sense. Do I need to actually provide independent justification? No, because I'll just side with my common sense because I'm irresponsible and don't care about knowing the truth.
If your view is, I have no good reason to believe this, I can't demonstrate to anybody, I just believe, cool, go get yourself a friend. I'm not your friend. I can be friendly and I can be a prick.
So we are going to move on to some more callers in a second, but if you would like to carry on like discussing this show after the show is finished, then please come to our fan-run Discord server, the ACD, at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And while you're in ACA mode, make sure you check out the newest episode of the ACA show, The Nonprofits, which will be on at 3 p.m. Central after this show. And for that, you can go to tiny.cc/YTNP. But anyway, let's move on to some callers. And we have a theist caller. We're going to talk to Billy in Texas. And you would like to argue against atheism. What's your argument, Billy?
Hello, by the way.
Hi.
This has been. I don't even know where to start. This has been torture just listening to these horrible arguments. I mean, just because faith is hostile to life doesn't mean there's not a God. Okay, just because religion is stupid doesn't mean there's not a God. Whatever arguments you have against religion, that's fine, because I hate religion too, but you have not argued against the existence of a God at all. And whenever a true ID proponent stands in front of you, you have no argument against it. There's lists and lists of high-level scientists that can demonstrate that nature is not capable of sequencing a functional genome, that random mutation is not a viable mechanism for evolution. Sure, evolution might occur, but random mutation is not going to do it. Okay, the list goes on and on.
So I'll just quickly before I pass over to Genevieve, just to comment on the arguments we've been having so far on the show. You know, because we haven't made arguments against whatever you're proposing, doesn't mean we don't have them. When we've got an atheist call in and they're like, "Oh, this stuff's driving me crazy," we can have a little rant about space. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have a comment on whatever argument you're about to make. So that's just my little defense there. However, I think you wanted to talk about evolution. Genevieve, did you want to take this one? Because I've done a lot of talking.
Yeah, sure. Please, yeah, I do want to just sort of echo exactly what Katie just said, is that there's a very big difference between shooting the shit with other atheists. You can't just say that we have terrible arguments when we have not really made any yet. And if you do have an argument, I would love to hear it. I struggle to debate evolution with people who deny it because there is so much evidence.
I don't deny evolution.
Okay, okay.
I
So
I deny the mechanism. I deny the mechanism that's proposed to explain evolution, which is random mutation. That's
when you say
so when you say that though, we're not saying that all evolution is random mutations. Oftentimes these mutations aren't random whatsoever. That they have to do with the environment around you. That's why evolution works the way it is. It explains the biodiversity.
So how does the environment decide control mutations in the genome?
So
The environment control mutations happen in the genome. I'm not talking about like recombination or anything like that. I'm talking about like actual mutations.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but random mutations happen literally all the time. All we are saying with evolution is that what mutations are beneficial is going to be very dependent on the environment, the timeline, everything that has to do with when this mutation is introduced to a population. If it's beneficial, then sex happens and more mutations are passed on, just like that one. It has everything to do with that, and not just, it's not just this mutation happened and then magically, wow, look at this. It has everything to do with how it can be passed down, and sort of what happens after that.
Everything you just said was completely pointless and worthless. What you said before.
I'm sorry,
Billy. Come on.
Come on.
Make your argument. So far, all you've said is that there are loads of scientists who don't agree with evolution, but we know that most of them do. So that was a bad argument. What is it you want us to respond to?
We said that some mutations are caused by the environment. I would like to know how.
Right.
The environment.
So a mutation. I mean, a mutation can be caused by like a gamma ray or something like that, or it could be caused by like hormone levels in the development in the womb, could cause like weird genetic expressions, which then trigger on further like genetic. What am I trying to say? I haven't got the words for this, but like the environment obviously causes some mutations.
Yeah, and they're random.
Do you actually think that that's? Sorry?
She said that they weren't random. She said that that mutations are not always random. That sometimes they're caused by the environment. If they're not random, that means they're.
It's apparent that you completely misunderstood my argument. You were saying that evolution is just about random mutations, and I said no. Evolution has to do with how those random mutations impact a population in their environment. That is what I mean. But while we are talking about genetic mutations, I mean, our genes are mutating constantly because of the environment. That's why you have cancer clusters in an area, is because of how toxicity in your environment can influence the way your cells behave.
No,
that's all that is, but that's besides evolution.
I mean, if we're all going to be picky about the exact wording of what people said, then I mean, we can actually make our own mutations in genes, and then there's a human influence on them. So sometimes they aren't random in that sense. But like the general principle is that most of evolution has happened because of random mutation. I think, yeah, but I don't know which point. What's your issue here?
I never even said that. I never said that. You guys keep strawmanning me.
I'm not attempting to strawman you, Billy. This is a call-in show. Sometimes.
I said that is not a mechanism that can explain evolution. Random mutation is not an explanation for
What doesn't it explain? What's the issue? Why doesn't it like? So you said that loads of scientists don't agree with it, but obviously the vast majority of them do, who are experts in this field. And so you're saying they're wrong. They do.
No, the vast majority of scientists do not believe that.
So what do they believe? What's the scientific consensus on the cause mechanism behind evolution?
I mean, I don't know what they believe, but they
well, you just asserted that they don't believe the thing that I said. So I said most scientists who are experts in the field of evolution believe that it's random mutation is the mechanism behind changes in genes, and you said they don't believe that. So, like, you must have some knowledge about what they believe in order to make that claim, right?
Dude, you said that the majority of scientists believe that. Can you prove that? That was your prove it.
So it's the accepted consensus in the. I'm not claiming that making me laughing is an argument. I am laughing and then I'm going to make an argument. Like, sometimes things are funny and I laugh involuntarily. That's not me making a claim that my laughter is an argument. I'm laughing because of what you said, and obviously Genevieve is laughing for a similar reason. So the proof here, I mean, if like this feels like a bit of a debate bar argument, like prove that the majority of experts in evolution believe that the mechanism behind evolution is random mutation. Like, I mean, what do you want me to do? Go out and ask every single scientist and then tally them up, and if over 50% agree that, then I'm factually correct and then I win? Is that the whole point of this? Or is it that, like, I mean, if you're coming on the show and you're making the claim that the scientific consensus isn't that, well, first I want to know what you think it is, but secondly, I mean, I just think that's kind of wacky. I don't know.
And Billy, I just want to say that my laughter is more so just coping with the fact that you're very upset right now. And I think that's kind of funny because we're having a good time and we're not trying to straw man you. I'd genuinely like to understand what you believe, but I do kind of just want to push back on this a little bit in the first place. So let's say that you were right about all of this, and that random mutations don't, explain evolution. What would that, what about that then proves your other claim that it must be God? If evolution were disproved tomorrow in any capacity, that's not going to immediately cause me to believe, oh, I believe in Billy's God now. There's thousands of gods out there. There's thousands of creation stories out there. And I don't know how your argument about random mutations being insufficient for our understanding of evolution goes back to, oh, well, this means that there's a creator of the universe and I believe in the right one.
I never said any of those things. You strawman me yet again.
I
fuck up for 5 seconds. Dude, you will not shut up. You will not stop talking for 5 seconds enough to give me a chance to say anything at all.
Billy, okay then, Billy, make a positive assertion. Let's have an argument about what's your point here. You're telling us your main call-in claim was that the majority of experts in evolution don't believe in the primary mechanism. Is it? Yeah. I'm just trying to say, like, what is it? What's your argument here? What's the argument? I don't want to straw man you.
I didn't tell you my argument. You're just going to speak over me and then drone on and on and on and not let me speak at all. So what the fuck is the point?
Well, I'm letting you speak.
You're speaking right now. Please.
Whine. Stop whining. Make an argument.
Well, I mean, I first of all, I have to straighten out all of the straw men that you fucking. I never said anything about a God.
Why don't we reset then? Why don't you just reset and make a claim?
Why did you strawman me? Why are you strawmanning my argument? Why are you deciding what my argument is?
Because we're so scared of your main argument that we're having a deflect. So why don't you absolutely crush us now by making a real argument?
What the?
Come on, I just don't even know what your argument is, Billy. You're saying we're strawmanning you, but you haven't made an argument.
Strawman me into fucking. You have strawman me into fucking confusion now. Like, you guys are. I mean, your debate.
Well, let's reset then. Let's reset, Billy. Let's chill out. Let's chill out.
Take a deep breath.
I'm having a good time. Genevieve, you having a good time?
Great time.
Billy, we can have a good time. Let's just make an argument. Let's pretend we just picked up. What's your argument?
Okay, my argument is just because the universe is hostile doesn't mean there's not a God. Okay, and I would like for you to support your claim that most scientists believe in random mutation evolution, because you made that claim.
Okay, so let's discuss your core argument that just because the universe is hostile, that doesn't mean that there definitely isn't a God. I agree.
Okay.
Cool. That's a good argument,
right?
huh?
now my next argument: just because religion is stupid doesn't mean there's
So the
not.
reason, hang on. So when you say that shouldn't be my argument, I guess you're commenting earlier on the show where we were saying, "Oh, isn't it so ridiculous people believe this?" So the full argument is not, "Oh, the universe is so hostile, therefore there isn't a God." The argument is that if someone is making a claim about a specific God, and they are saying that this specific God, like the Christian God, for example, has designed the universe for humans, we're saying, well, that's looks to be nonsense because the majority of the universe isn't for humans. So this specific God claim doesn't make sense, and it's a counter argument for that specific claim, not for gods in general.
Okay, who cares?
Do you agree with that?
If it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who cares? But do you agree?
Who cares what they say? Like.
Well, now you know. Now you know why we were talking about that earlier.
No, that has no value. That has no value.
Are we done when you straw man in us, Billy?
Wait, what?
I was just saying we don't want you straw man in us, so I was just clearing it up. But I think me justifying my claim that
your argument is like just because the universe is hospitable, then that's some kind of value towards there not being a God, and that's horseshit.
No, but you're straw manning me, Billy, because I just explained to you my full argument. It's an argument against a specific God claim. Someone who says, if someone says the universe is made for humans by my God, I'm like, well, most of the universe isn't made for humans, so your God sounds like garbage. I'm not saying therefore no God, therefore good Zeus doesn't exist or whatever. Like,
who says that? Who says that God made the universe for humans? Who says that?
Loads of people. I've been told that by so many Christians. I've had people call in this show before and say that.
Shit, dude. I've talked to so many Christians. I've never heard a Christian say that before. Come on.
Yeah, we've talked to different Christians. I've had loads of Christians say that.
I hear that all the time. It's
what?
So
Sorry?
they say that God made maybe a Christian, a super fundamentalist Christian. But if you talk to them, they'll say that they don't know. That's what they always say. Say that they don't know, and they have faith that's what happened, but they don't know shit.
We can agree on them not knowing shit, but once again, the argument we were making was specifically about a God who centers humans in the universe.
I just googled it and I found just whammed it in. The very first thing has come up here. It's from some website called Argus Leader, and they their little thing here says God did not just create heaven and earth, but He created them for us. That was just I just put in. So at least one person has made that claim. So therefore, it's a counter argument that we might want to make.
There are people who think the world is flat. Who cares?
Yeah, and I argue against them as well. They're quite fun to argue with, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes people call in and they're like, you know what, Katie? I talked to a flat earther the other day, and then we have a little oh, aren't they so silly because they believe this? And obviously this doesn't make sense. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm making the claim that all Christians are flat earthers, or all religious people, everyone who believes in a God thinks that the universe was created. I mean, if you personally don't think that God made the universe for humans, all right, then the argument that the universe isn't made for humans doesn't affect your God belief, does it? But that's why you need to make more specific arguments.
The universe is suitable. Look, the universe is suitable for planets, and some planets are suitable for life. That's how it goes. Of course, the universe isn't suitable for life because it's suitable for planets and black holes and quasars. And
what does suitable for planets mean?
Crazy shit like that. I mean, it would make no sense for the entire universe to be hospitable for life. I mean,
why not?
Wait, what do you mean? Why not?
Why wouldn't we have the universe hospitable? If I was God, I would have made the whole universe hospitable for humans.
Why?
Well, waste of time making it otherwise, isn't it? I don't know. Who cares?
But then, wouldn't it be obvious that there's a God though? Because it would all have to be. None of it would be able to comply with.
Yeah, if I was a God, I wouldn't be all sneaky about it. I'd just be like, all right, lads, I'm real.
Why? Why would you do that? Life is supposed wouldn't you? Wouldn't you challenge? Wouldn't you want to? because you'd want to challenge those little fuckers, dude. You wouldn't want to make like a world full of like little puppets. You want to make something that's challenging. Like
God has threatened me with eternal hell if I don't believe in him. He obviously cares about this a lot. Like if I would do things totally different if I was a god. I'd make all life. I'd make the whole universe hospitable for all life. And then I'd be like, you know what, everyone, I did this. You need to all just know, like, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to praise me. You're not going to hell if you don't believe in me, because I'm not a piece of shit. But now you know God's real. You can chill out. There's no hell. Like, you're all going to heaven. It's great. In fact, none of you are going to die, because why would I invent the concept of dying? Because I'm not sadistic. You're all just going to have a chill time. That's what I'd do personally, or when I am God. That is what I will do. I mean, does this sound mad, Genevieve?
No, I was thinking if I were God, I would have just made the whole universe like a big playground for my little beings that I made in my image. I wouldn't, hide from them. I wouldn't be an absent father. I would definitely just be like, "Hey guys, what's up? I'm here. Here's a little wormhole water slide to those other planets if you want to go hang out on those." I would skip the whole heaven hell thing. I would skip, "Oh, you have to deal with adversity so you can grow and be strong, because I don't want you to just be a puppet even though I'm begging you to worship me." Like, I wouldn't care if they worship me, and I would just be there and say like, "Hey guys, no point, just have fun, play with things. Yeah, have a great time. Be nice to each other."
I don't understand this. Wouldn't you want to challenge? I mean, you could, as a god, you could challenge any creation to any degree beyond comprehension. Like, we could just make it so all of the creatures that I create have to do a maths exam before they're allowed to go play in the playground. I mean, why I don't understand what this claim you're making here is. Why a god would of course want to challenge its creation. Oh, sorry. I accidentally clicked mute you there. Go ahead. Oh, Billy, don't get so annoyed.
Billy.
Dude, I've been listening to you guys droning on and on and on. It's been torture.
Yes, our show, mate.
Hey.
You don't have to listen. You don't have to call in.
If I was God, I would make the whole universe fucking sunshine and lollipops. And dude, do you guys know what makes something strong?
What's that, Billy? Tell us.
Do you guys know what makes something strong?
Go on.
Suffering.
What?
Suffering makes things strong.
Yeah, but if you were God, you could make it so not suffering made things strong. Like, why would you create a world where people had to suffer? Why do people need to be strong? Who gives a shit? Like,
boot camp, dude. Oh my god, dude. Why do you think the boot camp is hard? Why do you think
boot camp isn't created by God. I mean, like, the point of boot camp is to train up soldiers to go and kill other people. If I was God, I wouldn't. Why would I want that? I just don't. I think you're just assuming. You're accepting all of these ridiculous premises, mate. Like, why do you want your creatures to be strong? Whatever that means. Just make them strong in the first place, mate. Like,
who cares, dude? Are you muting me? Because like you guys just won't stop talking. Like, who cares what you guys would do if you were God? Give a fuck.
Well,
like that's
because you're making the claim that God must have designed the world in a certain way, and I'm saying that's not true, because there are loads of different ways.
Straw man. Another
No, you've definitely made this claim today, Billy. You can't say that this is a straw man, because you've said that of course God would make most of the universe inhospitable. What a ridiculous claim. Where is this cut? Of course a God would make the universe inhospitable. Where's that come from?
Like that. I never said anything like that. You're fucking hot.
You can go rewind it and have a listen, mate.
I never said anything like that. Why the fuck would I say that now when I've never said that before?
Do you know, I feel like you've said a lot of things that you probably haven't planned out and said before.
Oh dear, Billy.
You guys are strawmen. You guys just, all you do is drone on and on and on and then strawman the arguments. You guys are terrible fucking hosts for this show. I'm sorry, you just are. I've been watching this show for fucking like 10 years, ever since it started, and I've debated with the greats and you guys just aren't. I'm sorry, you're just not.
Oh, I'm really disappointed that I don't have the Billy seal of approval. To be honest, it's,
I know.
There's
I'm
more.
heartbroken.
Boo! Your arguments suck.
Yeah, well, the thing is though, Billy, you called in with this one argument that you've made one clear argument. I just agreed with it, but then pointed out that that was actually a straw man of the argument we were making earlier. And then you've made some claim about how most scientists don't think that random mutation is the mechanism behind evolution. And then you did make the claim that, of course, God would make most of the universe inhospitable, which is all right. And then you started going on about making things strong, like some arbitrary concept of strong, like emotionally strong. Like, what would you even make? I do not accept the claim that the creation of suffering. No, mate, I'll mute you if you're going to try and talk. I was obviously not done. I'm not finished talking.
Are you fucking done?
Oh, no, not Billy. I'm going to click the little mute button if you're going to start getting all grumpy. Like, I just don't accept the claim that, inevitably a god would make suffering. I think that's nonsense. I mean, that seems like an assertion you're making. And you can accuse me of strawmanning if you like, but I don't think there's any other way that the sentences you've said can be structured without that being a premise to your worldview. Oh no, unmute. I am now, Billy, fucking done.
Most dishonest arbiter I've ever heard.
Okay.
You have strawman me constantly. You constantly mute me and just drone on and on and on and never shut up. I mean,
yeah, but Billy. The thing is, though, I'm going to mute again. I absolutely accept the accusation that I have muted you more than once. When you say for the 15th time that I drone on and on and on, I feel like that's projection. I think like most of the things you've accused me of have been projection, apart from muting. You haven't muted me. I will give you that. But I think you've just said the same thing over and over again. Genevieve, would you like to add any finale here?
I mean, Billy, I'm going to keep this in my back pocket for next time I make a phone call. I'm going to call them, and then I'm going to tell them to shut the fuck up. Because honestly, wow, great move. Love that. Love that for you. I would just say that you have been just angry and hostile, and you've been jumping around to a bunch of different arguments, and then when you're speaking, you're just insulting us and telling us to shut up when we're trying to address one of the million things that you sort of just tiptoed by. And it's funny, so I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with it. I'm gonna say that your argument that suffering breeds strength is bullshit, because yeah, adversity can help you overcome things sometimes, but that comes with a lot of trauma, and a lot of people don't survive that trauma. If suffering creates strength, why is there suicide? Your God is an idiot if like that is the best system that you could come for to make us worthy. I mean, it's a load of bullshit. And I think it's just funny that you are so angry, and oh gosh.
Do you know what a sign of strength is? It's being in a confrontation and being able to be chill. And I feel like that's a strength that maybe we have shown, and not all of the participants in this conversation have. So maybe this call, the adversity of this call, has gone to improving your strength as a person. But anyway, thank you very much for calling in, Billy. I genuinely, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, genuinely would love you to call back next time I'm on the show, or any time for the next 10 years. But yeah, thank you very much, Billy. So yeah, that was interesting. I just before, actually, no, yeah, just before we go on to the top patrons of the week, I'd just like to comment on that last call a little bit about how I think it's very common for people to make these claims where they say like, well, of course suffering has to exist, because without it, that's where that's where strength comes from. And you, even if you accept the premise that strength comes from suffering, like if your God set out with the idea, I want to make people strong, what's a way I can make people strong? I should invent suffering because then they will become strong. Your God could invent people strong. Your God didn't even need, like, if it wants people to be strong, it can just make them strong, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's always the premise with loads of these little explanations you get from theists. It's like, well, of course God had to do that. Of course he had to make the universe inhospitable, because otherwise it wouldn't be a challenge. It's like, what? Firstly, why did he want a challenge? And secondly, why couldn't he have made a more sensible, obvious challenge, or a challenge that's actually fair? Or it never. I just never think there's been more than one step back of thinking. It's just like, oh yeah, well, of course it's suffering. Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it's all mental gymnastics as a roundabout way of explaining why God can be so cruel and still loves you so much. It's so funny that this last caller would say things like, it's my idea is stupid of having a universe that's a playground with wormholes and water slides to each planet for people to have fun with. But I was just describing what heaven would be like. Is there no challenge in heaven? I hear not. I hear that this whole earthly life is just a test to see if you're worthy. Okay, why doesn't he just make us worthy and skip all this nonsense?
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of feeds into this classic thing of, it's like, oh well, God wants you to worship, but he wants that worship to be like a free choice for some reason. Like, if you want to be worshipped, just make a bunch of like drones that worship you. Like, if that's the thing you need, if you need that for your existence, if you don't need it for your existence, why the hell are you doing it? And like, it's just always like that. There's just always so many things where it's like, well, God had to do this, but no, he didn't. God could do literally fucking anything, and God went out of his way to make a world where children are raped. And like, you can come up with some stupid explanation as, oh well, adversity. Well, like, no, like, God created that. He made this active choice for this thing and didn't have to, because whatever the goal was, it's something he could have just magicked up to. So, garbage. Anyway, let's talk about the top 5 patrons of the week, which is very exciting. As we mentioned earlier, Talk Heathen, or the ACA, has a Patreon, which you can donate to if you like Patreon, because it is really cool. And maybe you could feature in the top 5 patrons of the week. So this week we have at number 1, Eric Tweet. 2, Dingleberry Jackson. 3, Balaam's Donkey. 4, Amy. I might be saying that wrong. I'm really sorry. 5, Dan Conger. And honorary mention at number 6 for Davo Valgin. Yeah. Okay. Sorry for butchering everyone's names there. It's like a YouTuber classic. No one knows how to say anyone's names because they're all idiots like me. Strawman idiots who can't stop droning on and on.
Gosh. Yeah. Woe is us for talking on a show.
How
a talk
dare
show.
you
I
come
know.
onto my talk show and talk?
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Absolutely won't be inviting you back, Genevieve.
Never.
Everyone in the comments, make sure that you tell us how you want like the show to be in the future, because maybe if you want this to just be called Sit in Silence and Listen Heathen instead of Talk Heathen, maybe we'll consider it. That could be a change for the future.
We'll start our own show for just the worst hosts, and we can sit there and drone on.
Literally the worst host in 10 years. That's an accolade. I'm quite pleased with that. But yeah, before we close the show, how do you feel this show has gone? Has it been exciting for you? Would you have any like wrapping up thoughts? Or
yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun. I think that this episode has really highlighted to me the importance of taking a deep breath and really thinking about your arguments, and just being a cool, chill dude. I'm sorry. It's been a lot of fun.
I love people who don't have the chill. It's one of my I'm sort of blessed / cursed with no reaction under pressure, and so sometimes that can be bad. But when people start getting really spicy, like, I'm laughing not to like try and assert dominance or anything. It's just literally like there's no reaction, and then they said something that was funny. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's good. It was good that you were here to laugh through this fiasco with me. It was good.
Yeah.
But if you did like the show, then just remember that the ACA lives on your donations and your YouTube memberships and this kind of thing. So there are several ways to support the show. So we have our fundraiser where 100% of the profits go directly to ACA just below. Obviously, we'd love it if you would like and subscribe because this is YouTube and that's what you have to do to get the algorithm. Because without liking and subscribing, there's no strength. And it's like an adversity that we have to go through because something God, you can become a member of the YouTube by clicking the join button below. Support us on the Patreon, which we just talked about, our top 5 patrons, tiny.cc/Patreon TH. You can listen to all these shows. You can go back and listen to me, Genevieve, and Billy having a chill chat in podcast form at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And you can come hang out with us and the wider atheist community, either at the Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG or to the ACD, the Discord, which can come out and talk to me and Genevieve after the show if you like, at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And lastly, make sure to check out the non-profits, which is on after this show. It's at 3 p.m. Central, tiny.cc/YTNP. So I would love to see the faces of the crew during that last call. Can we see the crew and can you reenact your expressions during the Billy call? Yeah, I'm enjoying most of those reactions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The crew here is amazing, and it's like one of the best things about being on the ACA shows is the crew. So it's good time. But yeah, so one of the special features of this show is we like to send out love rings to everyone in the audience, everyone in the wider inhospitable universe, all the way out to Billy, and like all the way out to all of the straw men that live in my brain. I don't know. So I'd just like to say thank you to all of our viewers. So obviously, thank you for everyone who's part of this community. You know, if you're not a believer, this is the community for you. Thanks for being here. And you know, super thanks if you're working a hard job, still pandemic times, probably for a long time yet. We really appreciate you doing those kinds of excellent jobs. And I appreciate everyone who reaches out and talks to their religious friends and, you know, spreads the word of our Lord and Savior, no Lord and Savior. And if you do believe, I just want to say, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.